Merci beaucoup, Dominique et Thibault.
Thank you very much, Dominique and Thibault, for these words of introduction. I suggest that we continue today, and in doing so, I'm going to present to you the challenges and the objectives of the National DVDC project. This presentation was prepared by Christine Leroy and myself. Christine is not here today for the reasons we mentioned. Christine actually retired very recently. Nevertheless, I did want to say a very big thank you to her and ensure that her name was mentioned throughout the day, because she really made a major contribution to making this day what it is. So to start out with the presentation, I wanted to give you a reminder of the initial objectives of the National DVDC project, because as you know, we set targets and then we achieve them, or only partially so. As you'll be able to see, our objectives were extremely ambitious. We have 4 main items. First of all, we wanted to create state-of-the-art. In other words, we realized that it was important to have an international state-of-the-art, because this type of research project has a fundamental ambition, and we have the RILEM experts here with us today that prove this. What we want is to feed off what's going on internationally speaking on the sizing of the work, and we want to take into account everything that's going on in terms of road maintenance in France, and we'll have a lot of work that will be presented slightly further down the line. The initial idea also was to gradually change the design method for new road pavements. As you'll see, it's not necessarily a subject that we focused on entirely in this way, but there are partial answers that we've come up with. Also, we wanted new road pavement condition indicators for each type of road networks. As you know, we have 1 million kilometers of roads with highly structured networks, the motorways, the national roads, and what we call the departmental roads that are a bit more scattered. Basically, we have all different types of roads to take into account. And our basic idea was to take into account different indicators for the types of roads. And our main purpose was to create and generate data that would be interoperable. In other words, whatever the service provider, whatever the materials that are used, we wanted to make sure that the project owner would have transparent information. So it means basically that everybody needs to agree on the indicators, the quality of the road pavement, depending on the network. And the idea was to have objective resilience curves. In other words, when do I need to perform maintenance work, and also in order to guarantee the quality of the road pavement and to ensure that I have limited impact on the environment, because of course that too is important. The basic idea also was to work on road pavement quality. This is something that is often focused on depending on the surface quality in terms of adhesion, for example. And it was important to look at the design as well, and quite a lot of work will be presented on this further down the line. Also, the ultimate objective that was focused on within the scope of the MOVE DVDC project, and I'll talk about this one. It was funded by the National Research Agency. This was to evaluate the residual lifetime of road pavements, taking into account the damage, the aging, chemical damage, for example, and we will provide you with quite a few answers in relation to this as well. So as you can see, the targets, the objectives were extremely ambitious, and we were able to focus on them thanks to a very broad partnership that we mentioned during the course of the introduction. Dominique Jomard as the chairperson. He was there to represent the project owner. This was very important. When we look at our road pavement assets, it's important to work with the 39 partners. And another point that is interesting is that all of these partners are relatively diversified, and they really do represent the road community in France. They're all part of our industry, the engineering people, the roadworks people, the academics as well, and project owners, and the clusters, the regional clusters such as Indura, that have gradually evolved and developed over time. The slide that you can currently see on the screen highlights the essential work performed by IREX that has managed this project with the introduction and the setting up of a certain number of tools. As you can see, we have lots of users, lots of people who've become involved in the project, approximately 150 people. So we felt it was very important to structure the way in which the project was organized nationally. So IREX, the Civil Engineering Experimental Research Institute, gave us a great deal of assistance. Camilo Duran, who is present here today, Philippe Gautelin as well. They performed all of the administrative work. Amélie Gautelin as well, who contributed considerably to the organization of today. And they made it possible to manage all of the funding, all the administrative work and the activity around the national project. And it was necessary, it was absolutely essential. So a big thank you to them for this work done in the project. As Dominique said, the project began 7 years ago, back in 2016. The project is a long-term project, as you've seen. Of course, like everybody, we underwent the whole COVID process during the course of the project, so it didn't necessarily help us. It took us a while to get the ball rolling again after COVID. Nevertheless, we had steering committees, executive committee meetings, and these at the end of the day did enable us to monitor and run the project in quite a precise manner, with decision-making processes and decisions made by the steering committee that were validated annually by the executive committee. The National DVDC project also received support from the ANR Move DVDC project, is the national research organization that funded this project. And more specifically, this part was dedicated to evaluating road pavement service life, and hence there will be a presentation on this today, but another feedback day that is scheduled to take place at the beginning of next year. Pierre Orniche, I presume, might be able to announce the date today, or will give you the date at a future date, but it would seem this meeting will be scheduled at the beginning of next year. These projects form the subject of different types of funding. The main source of funding is the contribution from the partners. In other words, all of the partners pay their contributions either annually or every 2 years, the aim being to generate most of the budget that is required for the project. And this means that we can fund approximately 30% of the research actions that are carried out within the scope of the project. You can also see that the National DVDC project benefited from grants from the DGITM. Quite a lot of money was contributed to the project. Funding also from the FEREC Foundation. François Hollard, the chairperson, is present with us here today. We also benefited from funding from the ASFA, the French motorway companies. They were very happy to contribute to the project for the LCMS tests that were carried out, and they too will be presented, the tests directly on the roads, and a bit of funding from the organization called Route de France, and residue from a former national project called MUR that focused on multi-recycling of the enrobé, and this within the scope of DVDC also forms the subject of a certain number of presentations. Enrobé is the asphalt mix. So for the DVDC project, we have 3 million in budget, and we also have a budget from the ANRDC of 1.6 million approximately. So let's have a look at the different themes that we focused on during the course of this project. We have 3 main pillars. The first theme concerned pavement deterioration mechanisms. I'm not going to go into detail on all of this, but you have the drill down on each of these themes. Theme number 2 concerned network condition characterization, notably with the feedback part, the in situ measurements, and also the structural indicators. Theme number 3 concerns the residual life assessment. This was a bit more theoretical, with a lot of new models that we proposed, new models for deterioration, probabilistic aspects as well. In other words, deterioration to the roads. and the surface courses. I talked about this, and the main aim here was to call into question the structural design of these surfaces. Then there was a last theme concerning optimization of all of these different aspects. The National DVDC project is currently being finalized. We haven't yet listed all of the deliverables. Nevertheless, we already have a certain number of reports that are available, 47 reports in total that have been approved and that are available. Some of them are scheduled to arrive between now and the end of the year, and this means we'll be able to draft summary, and individual brochures will be able to be published by the beginning of next year. You'll have access to them, and we'll also publish them in a very broad manner, and we hope they'll be very useful.
Le projet ANR.
PN DVDC also produced 15 reports, which will be made available with agreement from the participants. More widely, the national project contributed to the dissemination of work that was done during this project, both nationally and internationally, through scientific articles. You have a list here, presentations in various congresses and technical and scientific publications, with 8 articles in peer-reviewed journals, the highest quality of journals. There was a lot of awareness days. You probably participated in recently in the examination of road pavements in September, and academic work as well, with 4 theses that were funded, a postdoctoral study and a master's project. So to finish up, here's what we're going to do today. It's been divided into 3 parts, quite distinctly, which reflect the multi-level work we've done in the DVDC project. The networking part, to begin with, the highest level, and we'll come to more specifics on structures of road pavements and materials. There's no break this morning, so I hope you had a couple of coffees this morning and a croissant. So, we'll have lunch then at 12:20, where you had the reception this morning, and we will continue this afternoon without a break to try and finish around 4 p.m. And there'll be some refreshments at the end of the day. We want this day to be interactive, and at each of the sessions there's a Q&A period where microphones will be going around, and the project will, I think, nourish itself from today's debates. Today we have about, I didn't count you, we were expecting 170 people here and about 100 people remotely. And so the people remotely will be able to put their questions through the Zoom chat, which we'll try to bring to you in the room. Without further ado, let's go to the first presentation of the day. With the knowledge of a network, Bruno Espinas will present this subject.